Now.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I now call this regular meeting of the KCRHA Governing Committee meeting to order. We start by grounding our work in our theory of change, which is if we create a homeless response system that centers people with lived experience, then we will be able to focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequities in order to end homelessness for all. This is a hybrid meeting. There's a physical location and a virtual access. Today's physical location is Seattle City Hall. We'd like to thank the city of Seattle for allowing us to use their building. Austin, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Member Backus. Member Balducci. Member Barone.
Here.
Member Burney. Member Burney. Back. Member Constantine.
Here.
Member Harrell, I believe, is Member Washington today. Yeah.
Here.
Member McWhorter Jr.
Here.
Member Moore.
Present.
Member Nelson.
Present.
Chair Prince.
Here.
And Member Salcedo. Mayor Burney.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead. I'm
We're
sorry.
short of quorum by one as of right now.
Member Green is here.
Oh, Member Green, thank you. We are now quorum.
All right. All right. Next up is our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that King County is located on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples. We honor this land and its people, past and present, and we are committed to directing funding and resources to organizations led by and in support of Native and Indigenous people. Next up is the public comment sign up. At every meeting, we reserve time for public comment. If you would like to provide comments, please raise your hand in Zoom or sign up with Austin in person, and Austin will call on you in the order received after the CEO update. We are now going to move into executive session to get briefed from our legal counsel on the collective bargaining agreement pursuant to RCW 42.30.144. During this time, we will be joined by our legal counsel, Sophia Mabee. We are slated to be in executive session for 40 minutes, so we will hop back on this link at 10:50. We ask members of the public attending in person, if present, please leave the room now, and we will be back at 10:50. Executive session begins now. DC members, please leave this call and join the Teams link you have in your emails. See you guys in a second. Austin, you'll let me know when everyone's back.
Will do. I was on mute. Chair Prince, Chair Prince, we do have everyone back that plan to be back. Mayor Bernie had to step out.
Okay. All right. Next up is our consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. It's the approval of the December 2023 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
A motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you all for passing the consent agenda. Before we move on, I would like to welcome our new members to the GC. In Seattle, we have Council President Sarah Nelson. We have Seattle City Council Member Kathy Moore and King County Council Member Jorge Barone. Welcome to KCRHA. We are now going to move on to the CEO update.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to see all of you. Welcome to our first meeting of 2024 and Happy New Year. I want to begin with a brief update on the CEO search. The search firm has finalized the job description and it was posted earlier this week. Each of you should have also received it from KCRHA as well via email. We have also posted the job description for the Chief Program Officer role, and I would appreciate your help in getting that out to your networks. It's on the careers page of our website, as well as on Indeed and other websites. It's my understanding that we've received a few strong applications thus far, but we just want to make sure that we reach out far and wide. Excuse me. Severe weather. We had our first severe weather activation for a full week of below freezing temperatures from last Wednesday through this morning. And thanks to the City of Seattle, Exhibition Hall was opened with a capacity of 120, then quickly expanded to 200 and then to 300. It served well over 200 people each night. I'd like to thank the Seattle Fire Department, Public Health of Seattle, King County, and all the outreach teams who helped bring people in from the cold. And many thanks to the Salvation Army and their volunteers for staffing the emergency shelter at Exhibition Hall. I also want to thank Sound Transit for opening up Union Station as a daytime warming center. We also had a new emergency shelter open up in Shoreline at St. Dunstan's Church, thanks to funding from the 5 North King County cities. That shelter has a capacity of 20 people and is staffed by the Urban League. In South King County, KCRHA does not have contracts for severe weather response, but many cities, including Burien, Federal Way, Kent, and Renton, opened up their own severe weather shelters and quickly reached their full capacity. The severe weather activations are a big lift for our staff and for our partners, requiring many to pivot their full attention to severe weather and working overtime over the holiday weekend. As climate change accelerates, we expect more extreme weather more often, and we will have to prepare for more severe weather response, whether that's in extreme cold, extreme heat, or unhealthy wildfire smoke. As we wrap up this severe weather activation, I also just want to remind and remember that the health impacts of homelessness are severe even when temperatures are mild, and that the long-term fix is expanding access to permanent affordable housing. I'd also like to give you an update on the status of contract renewals with our nonprofit service providers. As of today, 117 contracts are fully executed, 45 are with providers waiting to be signed, and 39 are at various other stages of the process. The majority of service providers at this point have their contracts completed. However, some of the larger providers have multiple contracts that are still being finalized. These contracts are set at level funding from 23 to 24. And during 2024, we'll be working with our service provider partners to redesign contracts to be more streamlined and effective as we work to implement the 5-year plan. I'd also like to thank our finance, contracts, and programs teams and our service provider partners for their work to get the contracts completed on time. In addition, I would note that we heard from staff and providers their complaints and concerns about our current contract system flux, and change is coming. KCRHA is moving to Salesforce, and we expect the platform will ease the contract and grants processes. We're currently customizing it to meet our needs and the needs of service providers, and we will continue to share updates ahead of the tentative launch in May. In addition to contract completion and severe weather, the biggest project we are working on this month is the point-in-time count. You received a presentation on the methodology and process for the count in November in the various caucus meetings, and we are now in final preparations and training over 130 volunteers. I'd like to note that Council President Nelson and Council members Moore and Barone, I can offer a briefing to you as new members of the governing committee as well, but it just needs to be after February 2nd. The nutshell version is that starting on Monday, 17 hub sites in urban, suburban, and rural areas in King County will open, and the count will take place over 2 weeks. We're using a respondent-driven sampling methodology that was developed with researchers at the University of Washington and approved by HUD. So data collection starts on Monday and will run for 2 weeks until February 2nd. And the final numbers will be shared and submitted to HUD in the spring. Also, as part of the HUD requirements, we will conduct a housing inventory count, which will give us updated information about the number of units of emergency shelter, permanent supportive housing, and other housing options available to our community. As we head into 2024, I want to encourage our state partners at the legislature and our city and county council partners and leadership to continue their commitment to funding permanent housing and homelessness response. KCRHA will continue to work to optimize our current budget and seek to diversify funding so that we can achieve the priorities set out in the 5-year plan. And so again, I'd just like to thank you for your partnership and for your support. Thank you.
Any questions for our CEO? All right, next up is.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, this is Jorge Baron.
Go
Could I
ahead.
ask a quick question? Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I appreciate it. CEO Howell, thank you so much for the report. I really appreciate all the work that you and the team at the authority are doing. I just had a question about the severe weather report. I saw a news report yesterday about a number of folks in our community who unfortunately passed away because of the exposure to cold weather. And I understand that the hard efforts of everybody that you mentioned made sure that that number was as low as possible. But I'm just curious if there is any plans or any ability for folks to kind of look at those kind of incidents where we unfortunately tragically did not reach people, to see what we can learn from that. I know, for example, in the domestic violence context, there's kind of fatality reviews that happen to try to understand what happened and see if we can learn lessons from those tragic circumstances. Obviously, we want to get that number to 0, right? We don't want to lose any of our neighbors because of these severe weather events. So just curious if there's any ability or plans to kind of look at those, what happened in those incidents and see if we can change our approach to again, hopefully get that number down to 0.
I'm in complete agreement, Councilmember Barone, that we need to do our best to serve as many people as possible. With 53,000, actually more than 53,000 people in King County experiencing homelessness in the course of a year, and our resources being what they are, sometimes that's challenging. I will say we did not turn away anyone from the sites that we did have open, and that transportation was available. I'm sure, no doubt, we can do more to reach out, and we're doing what we can in terms of notification daily of what's available and where folks can go. But we're always happy to look and take and consider what else we could be doing with the resources that we have.
Deputy Mayor Washington.
Thank you. Helen, just so that I'm clear, I know the city gives you funding for severe weather shelter for the city. Do you guys have funding outside of the city that runs countywide?
I do believe that the county has made periodic contributions. I couldn't tell you the full amount, but they do, and especially when we're in a pinch, I have to say, they're our go-to. Is it possible to get an additional 50,000 because we've had more severe weather activations than
I'm sorry. I wasn't talking about King County. I was talking about the cities.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Throughout the county, are we the only city that gives funding for severe weather shelter?
I did mention the 5 North King County cities that contributed to the opening of that shelter in Shoreline. That was opened, and the Urban League did staff it, and that was a first for us.
Councilmember Moore.
You're on mute.
Wait, here we go. It's a trick for young players. So as a representative of District 5, I do appreciate that you were able to open the shelter in Shoreline. But I'm going to make a plug here for looking at having additional shelters actually in the District 5, within the District 5 boundaries. trying to get people to get down to the Seattle Center, even though, you know, you made that, I know the fire department was out and service providers were out talking to people. It's just not realistic. And even trying to get to Shoreline, and that was a very small capacity shelter. I know that the Mennonite Church had been in conversation with KCRHA about providing, and they actually are still available to provide shelter, and they are actually in Lake City. And I know that Lake City Partners has been talking about looking at expanding it to seasonal shelter, winter shelter, not just emergency weather. So I would really request that in looking at, you know, going forward for next year, that perhaps we expand the model from just emergency weather to seasonal shelter, and that we look at the partners that we do have in District 5 who are more than willing to work and provide shelter and staffing for that shelter, which I know is a big issue. So just going forward, and also making sure that when we come back to the budget, that there's sufficient funding for this program. I know we had some discussions earlier last week about there not being a concern about not being able to expand capacity because you're wanting to make sure you have enough money for summer and the next winter. And so obviously, as you note, we're going to be having increased needs. So making sure that we are, that RHA is really appropriately funding for those increased needs. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the first I'm hearing about staffing offers. So I look forward to following up with you. That's been the biggest challenge in terms of opening new sites, is that capacity of providers to provide additional staffing. Also, it's my understanding that prior to COVID, we did have seasonal shelter, and that was the model, but with COVID and the development of enhanced shelters, they've kind of been transformed and now are part of the existing shelter bank that we have available. So, but I look forward to talking with you about the church that you mentioned, and if there is staffing available. We want to make full use of all available resources. So thank you.
Thank you.
Roosevelt.
Hi, thanks, Helen, for your update. I have a question regarding the Riverton up there in Tukwila. Do you have any updates for us about what the status of that is? Because that is a very serious situation. I'd like to appreciate that. Thank you.
I agree. It's pretty much a humanitarian crisis. The state is lead in the effort, and the county, and Deputy Mayor Braddock may be able to speak to that a bit more, in that they have served as the on-the-ground presence and provided the upfront resources for placement of many at the site into, I believe it's hotel rooms. And that they're doing this hoping that, and we have a commitment from the state to be reimbursed for the funding utilized for that purpose. I don't know if there's more you would like to add, Deputy Executive.
Thanks, Helen. Hi, Roosevelt. Good to see you. Yes, the county has secured 100 rooms. We started moving folks off of that site. Actually, over the weekend of Thanksgiving, we had volunteers help to move off some of the most vulnerable people, and then they've continued to do that work. And I don't know the number right now, but it's between 230 and 250 people that we have been able to get rooms for in the hotels, working with a nonprofit, contracting with a nonprofit to do that work. And then really Tukwila had led the extreme weather response in the city, and they are continuing to work with the site as well as with many partners, including the state, to try to continue to alleviate the concerns in that location. So, but King County has indeed stepped forward with the work and the contracting to get the vast majority of the folks that were there when we started this work at the end of November off of that site. But it's certainly still, it's an ongoing issue that we're continuing to work with the state and the city of Tukwila.
Thank you, Shannon and Helen.
Deputy Mayor Washington.
Yeah, thank you. I want to go back to severe weather really quickly. I don't want to lose what Councilmember Braun was talking about. And just as a point of education, so when the city funds KCRHA for severe weather, we open our facilities for free. KCRHA has a contract with Salvation Army. I believe they're the only provider that will staff that. So if we really want to get to 53,000 people and make sure no one dies outside in the cold, this is our opportunity to really be connected regionally across cities to make sure that every city we open up City Hall, we open up our the Seattle Center, we open up community centers. And so I just want to ask like CEO Howe to start having conversations with different communities, because imagine the power in having every city have 3 facilities open and providers in every city contracted to staff. I believe that that would take the pressure off one provider, and it would also give us thousands of beds. So I just wanted to lift that up. Thank you.
All right, next up, we've got public comment. We have 15 minutes for public comment. Austin, will you please call on the public commenters?
Awesome.
I'm sorry, excuse me quickly. Is it possible that we get at least 90 seconds per individual on this?
It is 90 seconds.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Hello, everyone. This is just a friendly reminder to please raise your hand now to be called on in order. And we will begin shortly. You have 90 seconds each. I'll give you permission to speak. You'll unmute, test your mic, and then you'll begin. First up is Jade Weiss. Jade, you've been given permission to speak. If you want to unmute, test your mic, and then 1 minute will begin after the test and speaking.
Thank you. Testing.
Test. Hear you, Jade.
My name is Jade and I'm a resident of King County. Once again, I'm demanding that the RHA use its jurisdictional power to stop the sweeps. The RHA must cease all colluding activity with the city to enact this violence. I have been raising this alarm about the harm of sweeps to the RHA since 2021, when I was the first lived experience staff hired. In May 2021, community members across King County sent countless emails and voicemails in an attempt to get the attention of this newfound supposed lived experience focused organization. I was hired to be the liaison to the community, and I was told I was an expert due to my lived experience. However, I was gaslit, I was reprimanded, and I was told to go to counseling. Of course, I quit, because from the very beginning, all major players involved in running the authority have violated the foundational frameworks, the theory of change, the interlocal agreement that was crafted by community. The city, the county, the RHA, and all the other powerful stakeholders have never truly been interested in centering the voices of those most impacted by their negligent and cruel policies. This includes ignoring or even silencing board members with lived experience. Therefore, the RHA is actively and has historically been illegitimate for operating in bad faith and not honoring its end of the contract. All those in positions of power should be removed or at a minimum investigated. 32 residents of King County died while unsheltered in December 2023. 5 have already passed away from hypothermia just 2 weeks into the new year due to exposure to extreme cold. This morning, just before you all logged into the Zoom meeting from your warm homes and offices, there was a sweep in the International District. Cal Anderson Park gets swept nightly. Mind you, these night sweeps have not happened in Seattle in years. This escalation is the opposite of what anyone who truly wants to end homelessness would do. It is senseless and does nothing to save lives. Rather, it increases risk of death. The RHA coordinates with the city to take better.
Your 90 seconds is up. Thank you. This is just a reminder that the time is set at 90 seconds. So please only speak for 90 seconds on public comment. We move forward over to Elizabeth Malpin. Elizabeth, you're given permission to speak. You want to unmute, test your mic, and your 1 minute, 30 seconds will begin after that. Elizabeth? It appears you are muted, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you can unmute. Elizabeth, I will move back to you once we have the tech things up. You'll be next up after Harold Odom. Harold, you've been given permission to speak. If you'd like to unmute your mic, test your mic, and then your 1 minute, 30 seconds will begin then.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Harold.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Washington, it's great to see you and see you healthy and hear your voice. Ladies and gentlemen of the King County Regional Homeless Authority Governance Committee, you have been fooled once again. To hear the testimony of interim CEO Howe is unbelievable. It's challenging. No, you fired 45 system advocates who were part of the theory of change to go out to find people who were minimized and hiding out and find them in the deep reservoirs where no one else has went. We were the team. We got you all your data, all your experience, and then you let us go. There is funding for it. And there's going to be proof of funding for it for the documents that are coming out, especially with We Are In. That fiasco over there, if you didn't know about it, you should know about it. There is funding for all of us. Excuse me? Anyway, as I was saying, there was funding, but 5 people, and how many people died in December? It is not challenging. It's where you choose to put your resources. If 5 people are challenging and they're dead, they don't want to get to 0, council member. They don't want to get to 0 because their funding will go somewhere else. 2, outsourcing where human resources within LA, they spent $700,000 on what? Outsourcing for consultants. Their experts are in the room already. Why spend that money outside of Seattle, outside of King County?
Thank you,
for
Harold.
people who do
Your
not
30
have the
seconds is
vested
up.
interest in our
90
community.
seconds.
The lived experience.
Thank you, Harold. Next up we have is Michelle, sorry, Elizabeth Maupin. Elizabeth, you've been given permission to speak. If you want to unmute, test your mic, your 1 minute, 30 seconds will begin. I see you're unmuted. Elizabeth, are you there? Elizabeth, I'll get you a little bit more time if needed. I can call you on towards the end.
I think she's unmuted now.
Yeah, she has been unmuted but nothing's coming through. Elizabeth, we'll call you back at the end. Hopefully we can figure that out. Michelle Eastman, you've been given permission to speak. If you want to unmute, test your mic, and then your 1 minute, 30 seconds will begin after that. Michelle Eastman?
Yes, sorry, I was
No
trying to
worries.
mute myself.
No worries. And we do hear you, so once you begin, your 1 minute, 30 seconds will begin.
Okay. Hello, my name is Michelle Eastman, and I'm the Director of Communications for the Lived Experience Coalition. I'm here today to urge you to table the bylaws changes that strike the lived experience, that mention lived experience instead of Lived Experience Coalition. I ask this because the Lived Experience Coalition is a jurisdictional body of the unhoused community of King County, elected from our coalition to serve on various boards. This effort to change the bylaws comes across as an effort to strike the LEC from boards, when the LEC can provide support and accountability for unhoused neighbors that simply having lived experience does not. I urge you to reconsider these changes and table this measure today. Secondly, in regards to the budget, the homelessness system lacks the capacity and funding to expand shelter options. I urge you to find creative funding and expand shelter to avoid the deaths of unhoused community members like the ones reported this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up is we have Zanita. Zanita, you've been given permission to speak. If you want to test your mic, 1 minute, 30 seconds will begin after that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hi, Good afternoon, Governing Committee. My name is Anita McWhorter, and I'm a member of the Lived Experience Coalition. But I've also held a few positions in the community, and I just want to address the Riverton Park encampment, where there are many immigrant families and singles staying there at the church and the lot, who need to find permanent housing. The county has contracted with an organization who then contracted with other places who now then come out and have discriminated. And so not everybody feels that they're getting services. So hence the reason some people are now going in hotels, and we understand how expensive hotels are, but we also understand how it feels to be discriminated against when some folks get 6 months in a hotel, and because the church can only afford 3 to 4 days, others have to leave. That's not fair. Hence another example, P4Z and row clients. So again, some get forever housing, some only get a certain amount. So we need to, as a county, we need to put money either towards UMC so they can make sure that they're helping folks stay inside instead of going outside. And if we're willing to put folks in hotels for 6 months and we really got it like that, then why can we not work with landlords who can spend that, and we can permanently house folks for 2 years? So we're wasting a lot of money to keep our jobs, it looks like.
Thank you, Anita.
What it looks like. Very
30.
much.
Thank you. Next up is on Zoom is T, the letter T. If you want to unmute, test your mic, and if you can provide your name.
Yeah, this is Talil Roche. I go by T. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Your 1 minute, 30 seconds begins when you speak.
Okay, my primary focus is going towards the advertisement. As I hear that there's all these policies that are that's helping out for the homeless people as far as homeless shelters and all that kind of stuff. But the main fear that I have is that there's no way to be able to get them aware of it. As it's all advertised online, who could tell that they be able to have the support to be able to get online or the access to get online? So I was trying to figure out, with all this stuff, can we come up with a legitimate plan on giving access to everybody so they are informed and being able to have the opportunities to get what they deserve? That's all I ask.
Thank you, T. Next up we have is Courtney Love. Courtney, you've been given permission to speak. On unmute, test your mic, and then your 1 minute, 30 seconds will begin after that.
Test.
Test. You're good.
Hi, Courtney Love with the Lived Experience Coalition. The Lived Experience Coalition is the jurisdictional body by which people live unhoused or having previously elect who will represent them in spaces like the Governing Committee. We provide community and support for these spaces, and the language in the ILA is a typo. It is a power grab to a typo. The result of such a move would create tokenized representation, and such tokenization is abuse of any person in such a. As more details about the machinations of the position of people and of those in positions of power have conspired to disorganize this coalition, I strongly suggest bylaw discussion. As more comes to light, the boards of the KCRHA may find themselves having to take more critical look at themselves. So before wagging your finger at us, I'm taking a pause. And I would like to give the remaining time back to Wise. Thank you.
Courtney, you did cut out quite a bit there. So just want to flag, I didn't hear the last part. If you could repeat that.
That I would give my remaining time to Jade Wise.
Okay, if Jade has not raised their hand, so that is 20 seconds, and then Elizabeth Muhan, if you have it. Jade, you have 20 seconds. Once you unmute your mic. Great.
The RHA coordinates with the city to take beds offline from the public so that folks end up positioning themselves in areas rumored or on notice to be swept, just so they may have a chance to get services. Severe Weather Response 3 just ended last night, meaning even less beds in emergency shelters available. The options for folks in public spaces who are currently getting swept and for those who are less visible are net zero.
Thank you, Jude.
It's egregious, unacceptable, inhumane,
Thank you,
especially
Jane.
after the last GC meeting with
Next up is Elizabeth Mupin. I know we've been having some tech problems, and then nobody else has raised it. But Elizabeth, I've given you permission to speak. If you want to unmute, test your mic. Then I'll see one more time. If you want to, oh, you are unmuted if you want to test your mic, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, we still cannot hear you.
Hello?
Oh, there you are,
Hello?
Elizabeth. We hear you. We hear you,
Okay.
Elizabeth. Your 1 minute, 30 seconds begins as soon as you speak.
I'm a volunteer who regularly attends the East Side Homelessness Advisory Committee meetings and Lived Experience Coalition meetings. Though formerly homeless, I've been housed for the past few decades. I can ask you about to decolonize systems, but how this should be done needs input from groups most severely impacted by systemic oppression and homelessness. The Lived Experience Coalition brings those voices to the table, keeps them informed and accountable to their peers, so that voices of the Black, Brown, Indigenous, disabled, poor, and oppressed will not be tokenized or co-opted. I appreciate your efforts to increase diversity and bring in voices of more homeless populations, but I do see how hard it is to represent a whole group of diverse people without any organization to hold me accountable and keep me informed of the diverse needs and experiences that come with homelessness. Please keep our coalition in your bylaws and fund us so that we can connect with other groups of the unhoused and bring in needed diversity, the diversity you seek with real accountability. Thank you very much. And please pay attention to those voices talking about severe weather shelter.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We have one more on deck so far, and that's Adam Rice. Adam Rice, you've been given permission to speak. If you want to unmute, test your mic. And your 1 minute, 30 seconds will begin after that.
Oh, thank you, Austin.
Hi, Adam.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
All right. Look, as has been previously stated, 5 people are dead in 18 days. We have about 8,500 shelter beds in King County. We have a need of 53,000. We look at these revelations coming forth about we are spending almost $1 million on Democratic Party consultants. We've seen the KCRHA spending millions on other consultants. I traveled 1,300 miles from my home to come to this city to help create a new response to homelessness. We were able to put people in rapid rehousing with full services for about a total of 45 grand a year. That includes our salary, you know? So $1 million would have housed 20 people. Instead, it went into somebody's cousin's pocket. This is a ridiculous move, the ridiculous waste of funding. And every homeless services grifter in the country is not supposed to come and get rich off of this pot of money. This was supposed to house people in Seattle. I'm incredibly disappointed with the leadership and we are in, and I haven't even gotten to the RHA, but I'm out of time.
Thank you, Adam. With that, I'll do one final call. If anybody would like to speak, please raise your hand now. If not, Chair, we are closing public comment. Nobody has raised their hand and nobody is with me at the City Hall.
All right, thank you so much, Austin. Next up is our 2024 budget resolution. Austin?
Budget is actually James Rose and Tiffany Brooks, but if they would like to take it on.
Yes, thank you. Tiffany is going to share her screen. We're going to do a quick run through of the presentation that we provided in December, just to refresh everyone's memories of what you'll be voting on. In last meeting, we talked about the 2023 budget, gave an overview of that. We'll give you the details of the 2024 budget and then go into a vote. As you'll see here on the next slide, the 2023 budget, you can see all the programs that made up the $228 million in 2023. These programs we inherited from the city and the county, and we continue to maintain those. In 2024, the process was that we would have a base budget. We did continue some one-time funding, and then we had some incremental changes that were built into the 2024 budget. In April, May of 23, we submitted our proposed budget to the implementation board and governing committee. In September 23, we the mayor released its budget revisions. In October 23, King County released its revisions. In November 23, the city adopted the final budget, and in December, the county adopted the final budget. And then we presented it to the implementation board and governing committee. And now here we are at this meeting for a vote on the budgets. This is your original proposed budget of $249 million. I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany because she's closer to this budget and can really talk through the details. We're going to try to be quick here. I don't mean to rush it through, but we have a limited amount of time.
Good morning, everyone. And before I get started, I want to thank all of our funders for the hard work that you put into our budget for 2024. As James mentioned, this was our original proposed budget for $249 million. I would like to highlight that we did have some changes between the proposed budget and our final budget that we will be presenting to you. They're in bold text in the cells. And then in this next slide, we are highlighting them in gray highlight so that you can see the difference of what the initial amount was versus the current amount in our final budget. We've revised this slide since our previous submission to and presentation to the GC to ensure that we are aligned with the City of Seattle's adopted budget and are presenting the budget showing what's been adopted for 2024 versus what we project to carry forward in federal funds in 2024. So we have a full budget, final budget proposal for $224 million for 2024. Some of the major changes and shifts that you would notice from our proposed budget to our final budget will be a recategorization of $11.8 million of state right-of-way funding to permanent supportive housing. This is not a decrease in enhanced shelter funding. It is simply a correction to a calculation that put it into the incorrect cell for the presentation. We are then also showing the difference in permanent supportive housing. In addition to moving and shifting the $11.8 million to permanent supportive housing, we are also recognizing that we will have a delayed transfer of COC contracts to the KCRHA, which will start in Q2 of 2024. We are also identifying some budget adds that have been added, such as the RV storage, a transfer of a contract to the RHA, and also continuing our supports and resources to clients who are currently receiving services from Partnership for Zero. Right here, we are going through our comparison between our 2023 final budget and our 2024 final budget. It's highlighting those major areas that we just discussed or that I just mentioned to you guys, as well as going into a little bit more detail for all of the different changes that we're seeing within our budget change between the 2023 2023, and 2024. As we continue to diversify our funding here at the KCRHA, we've increased our HUD Continuum of Care dollars and have brought on the North King County Interlocal Agreement, as well as the Commerce State Right-of-Way funding. We anticipate up to an additional $2.5 million in philanthropic funding from other funders and an additional $22.8 million from the Department of Commerce. Of all of our programs that we fund, Enhanced Shelter is our top funded program, and Permanent Supportive Housing is second, and then Rapid Rehousing is third. Of our budget that we receive from the City of Seattle, it's broken down by each of our fund sources and highlighting what the City of Seattle's 2024 adopted budget is, our carry forward or projected carry forward for 2024, and our total award from City of Seattle of $113 million. And it's identifying which two fund sources will be projected to have carry forward in 2024. King County is $35.5 million, and it is breaking down the funds.
Sorry, can you go back to the last slide? Did you say that you have projected carry forward?
Yes, federal carry forward for Clifford and CDBG CV, where there are automatic carry forwards after we close out our books. These are the dollar amounts where we landed after we finished our invoicing for 2023.
So those are already dictated as automatic carryovers?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. King County budget is $35.5 million. DM Washington, do you have another question, or is?
Sorry, old hand. I'm getting used to this platform. Thanks for asking.
No problem. Just want to make sure I answer all your questions. Of our other fund sources, we have our North King County ILA, philanthropic funding, HUD Continuum of Care, and Department Right-of-Way for a total of $75 million. Our admin budget is roughly about 6.35% of our program and overall funding. And we have pretty level funding for our staffing, and then we have slight increases to overhead, a slight decrease in professional services from contracted services that were used last year for system rebids, process and stand up and procedures, as well as a decrease in our software. The decrease in software is simply shifting $1.2 million for our HMIS BitBookis contract to a program cost, considering that it is strictly to support our programs and it is categorized that way by our funders. Our final budget for 2024 is $224 million, $433,910 for the year. And at this time, we are open for any questions that you may have and discussion.
Any questions?
I have a question. Do you
Okay,
all?
I've got
sorry.
Council President Nelson with her hand up, and then I'll come to you,
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Washington.
Thank you.
So KCRHA is planning on rebidding contracts, and how will that impact the allocations here?
Yes, when we get into the system rebid process, it will have more of an impact on our 2025 budget going forward. This year, we are continuing our contracts that transitioned over to us from King County and the City of Seattle. So these funds that are distributed to these particular program types are to continue those contracts that we've received from our funders.
And so I'm learning about your whole budget process. So I understand that in April, changes will be made for the following year in programmatic allocations. So will you know what the new contracts will cost by then?
We will not at that time. Once we go through the system rebid process, that will dictate how much is needed for each different program type and the planning that the team is working on and doing to ensure that we're providing and allocating funding to the correct program types for the system rebid. More information will be to come later this year.
Yeah, and I'll just add the system rebid process is going to take pretty much the full year to execute and complete. And we're working closely with the different teams of programming and such to make sure that we, in advance of the full completion of the rebid, that we really focus on what the funding of these budgets should be based on these providers, and try to capture that in the 2025 budget process, because it's in advance of that system rebid.
And I would just add that it would be between the 2025 and 2026-27 budget process as well. So it will span across multiple years.
Deputy Mayor Washington.
Thank you.
Excuse me real quick. I know that
Roosevelt,
member Barone had his hand up before all of these folks, but you probably didn't see it. That's what I was getting ready to say.
I'm happy to let Member Barone go.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Tiffany, could you, I wanted to ask you to go back to the slide that's labeled 2024 proposed and final budget comparison, if you can. Under the enhanced shelter, I mean, you mentioned that there's a categorization of about 11.8 million there that accounts for that, but there's the difference that is listed from the proposed to the final is actually 18 million. So that still leaves about a little since 7 million of a difference. Could you just talk about what that difference is in addition to the recategorization?
Absolutely. Some of that is also one-time funding that is going away for stand-up cost of some shelter services or other programs that we receive funding from for 2023, where it was a one-time nature for capital and stand-up. We also had some decrease in there for Department of Commerce right-of-way one-time funding. We are in the process of requesting and proposing additional funding to help support some of those programs, and so they're anticipated to continue. However, those dollars have not been secured as of yet, so they're not included in that dollar amount up there. And the $11.8 million is transitioning down to the permanent supportive housing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Deputy Mayor Washington.
Third time is a charm. So Tiffany, where is the increased staff costs in the personnel line for the retro payment of the cost of living that KCRHA staff anticipate?
The retro payment for COLAs for staff members? That's still within the line for our admin. We've had some attrition, and so it feeds into our overall budget. Let me get to that slide for you. So you're not going to see a net change year over year. We do have some attrition where we will be doing COLAs for our staff with the funds that we have there. And then some of that COLA that we're receiving for the RHA operating costs is accounted for in the overhead.
So let me say that, and sorry, you're much smarter than me, and I do mean that when it comes to finance. So you're assuming that you're going to pay the COLAs with staff attrition savings?
It's in addition to the funding that we have for the COLA, as well as some shifts that we're looking at in ensuring that we are staffed properly at the KCRHA.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, the timing of the hiring of many positions is going to carry over the next several months. Some of those positions being higher level executive positions that take more time to locate. So the COLAs will easily fit within the budget, and then as we hire these positions, we're going to be monitoring and paying attention to the overall full budget that we have. And as we go through the 2025 budget process, that's when we'll be asking for an increase in the admin costs to make sure we can cover all the needs and appropriately staff for these things.
Member Balducci.
Thank you. I had a comment, but I would like to first ask a question following up on that last line of discussion. I want to reflect back and then ask a question. I think I heard you say that the funding for the additional costs due to the labor settlement is going to be made up of a combination of dedicated funding, actual salary savings and projected salary savings. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask, and then before I close this off, Chair, thank you for your thank you for your patience. Is we need to put our efforts into budget monitoring as well throughout the year, so that we can see what's happening. Because I can see how that would work in year one, but of course, any if it's not a bonus, if it's a step increase, then that all has a tail. And you need to watch that your expenditure line and your reasonably anticipated revenue lines don't diverge too far.
Correct.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's exactly why I said that, you know, in the 2025 budget, we're putting together a monitoring schedule of all the positions. And then we're going to be focusing on not just what the costs are for this year, but for the future, because once we're fully staffed, then are we going to be able to stay within this budget? That's the big question, right?
Thank you. My comment was that, first of all, I really appreciate James and Tiffany and the whole, I'm reading the wrong. Yes, Tiffany, there you are. The frames were all bouncing around and I got confused. I know who you are. And I wanted to thank you for spending a big chunk of time with me personally to walk me through all of this. That was very helpful. I got a lot of line item questions answered. But I do want to share just sort of my big picture hope for how we do this going forward. The way I view this budget is that this looks like the end of a sequence of how we started up the KCRHA and how we funded and budgeted. But it doesn't yet sort of drive the system change that this agency was created to drive, because that's going to be done through the future budgets and by means of the contract renegotiation. So we're going to now take our 5-year plan, our value statement, our theory of change, and put that into practice by building a budget and building contracts that provide the services and in theory lead to the outcomes that we are seeking. And that happens next year, this year, for next year, I would say. And so I'm hearing a little bit of a timing challenge, because if you're going to be spending all your time working on contract restructures, I really want us to get to a conversation as a governing board about how do we take the activities we want to do, the way we plan to do them, and the outcomes we hope to have, and build that into our next year's budget. So like our, not 2024, our 2025 budget, because that's, to me, where the rubber really starts to meet the road and we start to prove this concept. So I'm looking forward to hearing more details about how we make that all happen, so that we, at this time next year, are working towards budgeting for more progress. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Moore, do you still have a question? All right, any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-03?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Austin, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Member Balducci,
Aye.
Member Barone,
Aye.
Bernie is no longer here. Member Constantine or Braddock,
On behalf of Member Constantine, aye.
Member Washington,
Sorry, folks, I need more information before I can approve the budget, so no.
Member McWhorter Jr.,
Aye.
Member Moore,
I too am abstaining.
is it an abstain or a nay?
It's an abstention.
Got it. Member Nelson,
Abstain.
Member Prince,
Aye.
Member Green.
Abstain.
Chair, the motion fails since it has failed to reach a 2/3 majority.
All right, motion fails. All right, next up is the resolution.
I'm sorry, can we get what does that mean? Do we have no budget?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so the ILA states that it is 2/3 of the present We had only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yays. We need to reach 6. We had 1 nay and 3 abstentions.
I understand the vote count. The question is about what does this mean for the organization? Do we have no budget? What happens next? We need a next steps discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, I will direct to Tiffany and James on this one, and maybe Helen.
If we can get clarification of more information that's needed, then we'd be happy to provide it.
And then there would be likely a special meeting called from then until April, because the next meeting is set for April.
I think too, though, to answer the question of what happens, I think without a budget, we would not be able to start paying our providers until we actually have an approved budget in place. So this could delay and interrupt services, you know, with the January expenditures.
Go ahead, Claudia.
I think the question was answered, but I'm processing. This budget, proposed budget that failed was scheduled to cover January 1 through December 31st. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. By the way, it's another process issue. We should have and I point at the board, to be honest, too. Here, we own this as well. We need to get ahead of these things, like, so that you have the ability to make a decision and carry on with operations. Like, where's plan B? If people come in, plan to voting no on plan A, what's plan B? It would be really have been good to have known that and worked on that in advance. And I want to say, can I just say, I've been trying not to say this the whole meeting. Councilmember Barone, I think the issue is with your Zoom, your raised hand falls right in your cabinet and it doesn't show. I think that's what's happening.
That's exactly what it was. That's why I
Thank
didn't
you.
notice it.
All right, thank you for that, and I'll work on fixing that issue. Maybe I will go to the yellow hand and back to make it clear. So I just want to echo what Councilmember Balducci said, and I totally respect the folks who voted, who feel like they need more information. I will say I feel the same way in some ways, having just seen these documents yesterday, and I realize that is not the fault of the authority. It's the process that some of us only got sworn in very recently. But I do want to sort of like make sure that we have a plan then, if it is going to delay and impact providers, that maybe we set a timeline, or we, I don't know if the right process is for us to make a motion to schedule a special meeting in however much time we feel like we're going to need to be able to reconsider the budget, because we cannot leave the agency without an approved budget at this point. So I'll pause there.
Member Nelson.
I abstained because I clearly wanted to understand more about the process. I did speak with Austin yesterday, and I understand this is a more of a formality, and the changes to the decisions about where the money goes is actually going to occur later this year. So I am willing to approve this budget if you want to call for a re-vote. I certainly do not want to stop business. So thank you very much.
All right. Member Moore.
So I too echo Council President's comments. I am happy to consider a revote and to change my vote to make sure this goes through. Recognizing that there's a message sent with the abstention, but also wanting to make sure that our services are proceeding. So I would support a revote.
Okay. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Washington.
Following in the footsteps of my council members, we can take a revote, and I think the principle here for me is every single time we vote on this budget, this happens. And at some point, there has to be accountability. And we have to figure out a path forward where the agency is held accountable for producing real numbers that reflect what the funding is that you have and not ask us to approve a budget that has holes in it, because it backs us into a corner to choose between provider pay, making sure providers get paid, which is the city's primary goal, and holding you accountable. So I do want to have some kind of conversation offline about how to not end up here over and over again.
All right, it looks like we will need a motion to reconsider.
I move that we reconsider.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we can reconsider. Austin, will you please call the roll?
Yes, this is to
Point of order.
reconsider.
Yes.
I believe the motion and the second need to come from people who were on the successful side of the original vote in order for this to be a valid motion. And I'm not 100% sure that happens when you have people who have abstained. So I think we need a parliamentary ruling on who is eligible to make and second this motion so that it's valid. Sorry to be that person, y'all.
Yes, no, I thought of that too. It was a member Green did abstain.
I'll make the motion then. I'll make the motion.
All right, would we have a second?
Second.
Awesome. So it is McWhorter and Braddock is what I recorded. Both voted in the affirmative. So this is to reconsider voting on resolution 2024-03. Member Balducci.
Point of order, I didn't get an answer to my question. I'm sorry. The question
Yes.
is, what type of vote do you have to have cast in order to be eligible to move to reconsider the previous action? I didn't hear an answer to that question.
Oh, that would have been a yay. As
That's
I've been
impossible.
notified.
The yeas did not prevail, and the rule is that the prevailing side, person on the prevailing side,
Yes.
there was no prevailing side. So I'm sorry. I just need a parliamentary ruling and then I will shut up.
Let me do some looking on it.
We might need a minute. It's a big
Yes.
book. Okay. This is what my book says. My book says if the motion was adopted, a motion to reconsider can be made only by a member who voted in favor, or if the motion was defeated, then only by a member who voted against. So it has to be a no vote. It has to be, I think, Deputy Mayor Washington. Sorry to do that to you, but I think that is the rule.
That is what I also just.
What do I have to do?
You're the only person eligible on this call to make a motion to reconsider the prior action. So you don't have to do anything, but you're the only one eligible to do that.
I make a motion to revisit the approval of the budget.
Thank you.
Second.
Right. We are now properly moved and seconded. Austin, will you please call the roll?
Yes, member Balducci,
Aye.
member Barone,
Aye.
member Braddock,
Aye.
member Washington,
Aye.
member McWhorter Jr.,
Aye.
member Moore,
Aye.
member Nelson,
Aye.
member Prince,
Aye.
member Green.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion can be reconsidered. Or has been reconsidered with 9 ayes. The motion passes to reconsider.
All right, so now we need a motion to adopt resolution 2024-03.
I so move.
I second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Austin?
Yes. Member Balducci,
You have a hand up there. Maybe somebody wants to make a comment.
Oh.
Okay, aye.
member Barone,
Aye.
member Braddock,
Aye.
member Washington,
Aye.
Member McWhorter Jr.,
Aye.
Member Moore,
Aye.
Member Nelson,
Aye.
Chair Prince,
Aye.
Member Green.
Yes.
Chair, the motion passes with all 9. Nice. No nays.
All right.
And noes.
Motion carries. All right, next up is the resolution 2024-01 bylaws modernization. Austin, I believe that's you.
That is me. Let me share my screen for everybody and I'll be quick. I know we're very short on time. Here we are. So this is resolution 2024-01. This is the bylaws modernization. This is in a rapid response to the governance structure review subcommittee. One of the things that came up was a little bit more clarity in bylaws, including making them match the ILA. So that is what this resolution aims to do. There was a couple of things that did not match the ILA, such as naming the Lived Experience Coalition. We are changing it to as it's written in the ILA of the Coalition of Lived Experience or other groups representing individual lived experience. In addition, we are going to be striking where in the appointing process of lived experience seats, it does not match the ILA. We are going to be moving that to the advisory committee shall select and appoint 3 members representing those of lived experience. It will also be adding a section about consecutive absences, which is in the ILA, but not in the bylaws. So we're going to be adding that to add a level of accountability within the governance structure. And then we are also going to fix a little loophole that we have found where the chair meeting is canceled, the previous chair chairs. And by happenstance, it was just one word and that was an also. So we are striking that also. And we are also going to add the chair pro tem clause in the bylaws as one time. We had not had that clause in, but we did it. So we're gonna make sure it's in there for sure. And then if this passes, it passes immediately. It's effective immediately. And that is resolution 2024-01. Any questions?
Any questions for Austin?
Oh, Member Braun?
Yes, Austin, could you talk a little bit about, I mean, I'm noting the time right now, and there were some concerns expressed during public comment. Can you talk about the urgency of making this happen today? Because is there any harm to postponing consideration of this until some of us have a chance to understand more of the issues before voting, or could this be considered at the next meeting?
This could be considered this is simply just a rapid response, as I said, to the findings of the governance structure review committee. I just wanted to get a step ahead, as one might say, once the findings were concluded. So this is a response to that, but it can be reconsidered.
Okay, well, I don't know if I need to make a motion since nothing's on the table, but I guess I would ask the committee if we could push discussion of this item to the next meeting. But if other folks have questions, I obviously appreciate that.
Roosevelt.
No, I was going to concur with Member Barone that I suggest that we table this for further till later on, or just table this until later.
Member Nelson.
I believe that one of the substantive changes was proposed by Mayor Harrell. So I would like to hear from Tiffany Washington what her thoughts are. My preference would be to just go forward unless there is real controversy within the board members and we need to discuss it further. And I realize that we're short on time.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Council President Nelson. I think the mayor would be fine holding it off until the next meeting to allow the majority of the members to, especially the ones that are new, to get caught up on this. And it was joint with Dow and the mayor, so I'd like to hear if Deputy Executive Braddock has any issues with waiting until the next meeting.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Washington. No, we're certainly comfortable waiting until the next meeting so folks can be up to speed on the recommendations. Thank you.
All right. Do we need a motion to table it till the next meeting?
Yes.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second,
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. All right, we will discuss that at our next meeting. We have concluded our business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Is there a
Second.
second? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. The next meeting of the governing committee will be held on the date to be determined. A physical meeting location will be announced on the KCRHA website prior to the meeting. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.